Hey everyone, Ragebox here, and I'm starting a new series called Should It Be Remade, where we'll take an in-depth look at a classic game and ask ourselves if it should get a remake or a remaster. Today, for episode 1, we got a personal favorite of mine. A game I played many times over and even have a Let's Play of here on the channel. Tomba 2, the Evil Swine Return. Should it be remade? Could it be remade? Without further ado, let's find out. So the first question we must ask ourselves is, should it be a remake or a remaster? Because there is a difference. Not sure what that difference is? Well, don't you fret, because old Ragebox is gonna lay it on you. So a remake is essentially a whole new game from the ground up, just taking inspiration or key elements from the original. A remaster is the same game, but with much better graphics and maybe a few small quality of life changes here and there. The Spyro and Crash trilogies are great examples of the best possible remaster that a game can get. And honestly, I think that's what Tomba 2 deserves, a remaster on par with those trilogies. They would probably have to remaster the first game as well, but that's for another video. So then, the more likely scenario is that the game would be remastered. But is it a good idea? And is it even possible? Tomba 2, The Evil Swine Return, is the sequel to Tomba, a platforming adventure game with RPG elements that was released in 1997. While I've never played the first game myself, I've always heard good things about it, and I've been hounded for years by you lovely box bros to do a playthrough of it. Maybe one day, Tambo, maybe one day. But we're here to talk about Tomba's much more attractive successor, Tomba 2. Not its financial successor though, because while critically receiving higher reviews than Tomba 1, Tomba 2 sold a lot less copies. This ultimately caused its company Whoopee Camp to become defunct in the year 2000. Yikes. But more on that later. A full polygonal approach was taken in the development of Tomba 2, meaning the game would be 3D to achieve a greater freedom in expression, as they put it. You see, the first game was good old-fashioned 2D, but they wanted to keep up with the times and all that, so Tomba 2 would be developed in full 3D. A change I'm glad they went with, because honestly, it's what makes Tomba 2, Tomba 2. However, despite the change in graphics, the first game's basic systems and gameplay were preserved as to not alienate players of the previous title. Good on you, Whoopee! So basically, while the game was 3D, it still felt like 2D in some ways, as the game was on rails, meaning your path is always a linear one. I don't really mind this. I think it's another quality that makes the game unique and charming. Some people call it 2.5D, which I guess makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like 2.5D.
2.5D is, yeah.
There are a few sections of the game that are over the top full 3D, like in the coal mining town and in the clown town. The 2.5D elements of the game would definitely have to persist in the remaster, though I could see them potentially changing this and trying to make Tomba more like Crash or Spyro, just full-on 3D. Lord, I hope not. But yeah, keeping the game just the way it is as far as the 2.5D goes, that would be the best option, I believe. The game was released in Japan on October 28, 1999. America wouldn't see this game until January 18, 2000. Which is weird because I could have sworn I played this game in the late 90s. Huh. Mixed up memories aside, the game didn't sell very well, only making a fraction of what the first game made, and that game was considered lukewarm in total sales. Whoopee Camp only made 2 games, Tomba 1 and Tomba 2, and both didn't sell very well. Both were awesome games though, with decent critical reception at the time. So what happened? Well, no one is really sure why they sold so poorly. Me, I blame bad marketing. Yeah, a combination of that and Whoopee Camp not being a very well-known publisher at the time probably contributed to the games flying under the radar back then. Stores not having any stock available for the games was also a contributing factor, I believe. At any rate, the fact that the company that made Tomba 2 no longer exists doesn't bode well for the probability of a remaster. Currently, it seems a company named Monkey Paw Games owns the rights to the series, and no one's heard much from them since 2016.
Is there no hope?
However, it seems Monkey Paw Games aren't the only ones who still own rights to Tomba. According to a news article published by Polygon, the creator and founder of Whoopee Camp, Takuro Fujiwara, has brought the company out of dormancy in 2018. So does this mean Whoopee Camp does still exist in some way? What does our man Takuro plan to do under the banner of Whoopee Camp? Could he indeed be planning on a remake or even Tomba 3?
Don't look directly at it! It's so sacred it'll burn your eyes out!
At any rate, it just doesn't seem likely a remaster will happen. But let's brighten things up by looking at just what makes Tomba 2 such an awesome game deserving of a remaster. Okay, so what's Tomba 2 about? Well, we start off with our pink-haired hero, Tomba, just chilling with his pal Charles. Tomba then receives a letter informing him that his childhood friend Tabby has disappeared. Childhood friend who just kind of appears out of nowhere since she's nowhere to be seen in the first game. But anyway, determined to find her, Tomba dives into the ocean and swims his pink-haired ass all the way to Tabby's continent to search for her. Talk about a long-distance relationship. Oh yeah, Zippo and Charles come too. Zippo is sort of like Tomba's guide throughout the adventure. His Jiminy Cricket, his Navi, his Aku Aku, his... oh, okay, you get the picture. Once on the new continent, Tomba and Zippo begin their search for Tabby by traversing the land and fighting off the evil pigs. That's right, evil pigs. It ain't called the Evil Swine Return for nothing. The return isn't too big a surprise, however, since they were the main villains of the previous game. Tomba and Zippo make their way through the fisherman village to the coal mining town where Tabby lives. Once there, they discover that Tabby was indeed kidnapped by the evil pigs. So Tomba travels the continent, defeating each of the magical evil pig leaders and lifting the curses that they put on the land. Did I forget to mention that? Literally each of the lands you go to have some sort of evil pig magic curse on it, except for the land of the fishermen. They didn't touch that place. Maybe the pigs were saving it for their vacation house or something? I don't know. Now, it's one of the things I personally find most appealing about the story. Going to a land and seeing the effects of the curse, and then watching the curse be uplifted, is always very satisfying for me, although some are better than others. Whoa, it's brighter? Anyway, so yeah, it's your pretty basic run-of-the-mill platformer story, except that it isn't! The story takes about 10 to 15 hours to complete, and is padded up with quests out the wazoo. Or events, as they're called in this game. Both main story events and side quests are available, and it makes this a really meaty game.
Damn, boy!
I mean, there is a lot to do here. Mostly because the people of Tabby's continent aren't exactly the brightest bunch. And neither is Charles, for that matter. He gets his monkey ass in trouble more times than I can fully remember. At one point, he gets stuck in a ball of mud, stuck in some leaves, and even gets a freaking rash where the quest is literally to go and find him some ointment to rub on his monkey asshole. Really, Charles? The silly and ridiculous quests, though, are part of the charm of this game, and I feel they add to the overall tone of a feral pink-haired hero on a mission to save his girlfriend from a group of magical evil pigs. My point here is, if you take this game too seriously, you might rob yourself of a really good time. There's this one quest that's probably my favorite in the main storyline called Static Explosion. While you're up at the Kujara summit, you find that your way to the next area is blocked. But not to worry, because the owner of the Kujara ranch, Fam, has a plan. By the way, the Kujara are these birds that are herded at the aptly named Kujara ranch. They kind of remind me of de-evolved versions of Chocobo or something. But I digress. These birds are able to store mass amounts of static electricity in their fur. That's right, their fur, not feathers. Don't ask me, they just call it fur for some reason. Anyways, Fam has built a massive machine that can harness the static electricity from the Kujara, converting it into raw, explosive power. But some Kujara are missing, so you have to go around and collect the rest. Tomba kind of just stacks them on top of his head, which I always found to be pretty funny as a kid. Still do now, actually. Now that all sounds pretty dull. It's just a simple fetch quest, right?
Wrong!
Okay, half right. But it's not the activity of the quest that I love, it's the end result. And you'll find that's the case for a lot of quests in this game. It's rarely just your simple turn in and get rewards quest. Most of the time, there's something interesting that happens. Maybe that's why they're called events. It makes you want to do as many quests as possible, and I find myself completing all of them every time I play through this game. Except the hidden quests that require you to have a save file from the first game. Now I kinda want to play Tomba 1 just so I can finally do the hidden quests in Tomba 2. Anyway, so when you finally return with a Kujara, Pam hooks them all up to his crazy machine and flips it on. The following scene is so ridiculously awesome that I can't do it justice by just describing it. And there's a few more quests in this game that end just as spectacularly. Now, as far as a PS1 game goes, graphics-wise, this game is great. It has bright, vibrant colors, and everything visually just seems to mesh really well together. They really did a good job of bringing the series from 2D into 3D, and the commitment of that change really shows. In the remaster, it shouldn't be tough to update these graphics and make them just as visually appealing. Now to talk about the dialogue.
Actually, there's a boy who wants to see the clown circus. Clown circus.
Clown circus.
It can be kinda hit or miss. Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of lines in the game that get a good laugh out of me.
Brr, cold, cold. It's cold when you don't have flying squirrel clothes.
But also some that just don't make much sense or sound very right.
You, what a funny face you've got.
But because of my major nostalgia goggles, this doesn't bother me too much. Or is it nostalgia headphones? I don't know, but you get what I mean. At any rate, bad translation is probably to blame, as usual with older Japanese-made games.
Of course it is.
Similar dialogue fates have befallen games like Final Fantasy VII, but Final Fantasy VII wasn't voice acted. It's one thing to read messed up dialogue, but hearing it can be a whole lot worse. Tomba 2 even has some scenes where the voice actors outright mess up during the recording, and they just left it in. I'm not even kidding. Listen to this.
If you're finding okay, here we go, there we go, alright. If you're finding Ashiki birds, please use these wings.
I really couldn't tell you how they missed that one, Box Bros. Of course, in the remaster, they could easily fix mistakes like that. They could also add in some new lines or tighten up some of the sloppy dialogue. Personally though, I'd like them to keep 90% of the dialogue the same. And don't make Tomba speak, for the love of God! He's just perfect as the silent protagonist, and that's how he should stay. Another thing I want to talk about is the music. In short, it's amazing. The soundtrack in this game is just 10 out of 10.
Give us more details than that.
Okay, fine. I'm not a musical expert, but I'll try my best. So I guess you could say the music is very atmospheric. The music is also very fitting to each of the lands you visit. The coal mining town music has sounds of clanging and an overall heavy tone that goes with a gruff town of coal miners. The Kujara Ranch, which is cursed by the Ice Pig, has a wintry theme to it that's almost Christmassy. And guys, just listen to it. One awesome detail to mention, whenever you lift a curse from the land, the music changes to reflect it. And again, the music matches well with the new area. There is one song that many find to be a bit repetitive. Some of you probably already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, get used to this song if anyone's listening.
Yep. the dialogue music. Me personally, I don't think it's so bad. But overall, the music is just spot on amazing. There's this one track from the game that is particularly my favorite, mainly because it's the most atmospheric of them all. It just oozes with pure nostalgia for me. It's the music from the last land you visit, the Water Temple. This music is just the essence of Tomba 2, at least for me. Its serenity, I can almost put on par with the Autumn Plains song from Spyro 2. Now in remasters, they do tend to remaster the music as well, which is all well and good, but more oftentimes than not, I feel like they miss the mark. Now I may be a bit biased when it comes to this. Some people like the remastered music better than the originals, and that's totally cool. But have you ever heard the expression, if it's not broken, don't fix it? That's how I feel when it comes to these games. The music is perfect. Enhancing the sound is fine, but I feel like sometimes they go too far and change the key elements of a song that made it amazing in the first place. I'll give you guys one major example from the Crash trilogy so you know what I'm talking about. More specifically, the 4th level, Boulders. So in the original Crash Bandicoot, the level starts off differently than the previous levels, with the camera facing Crash. I'll play the music for you so you can really get a sense of what I'm talking about here. Immediately, an intense drum beat begins to play, and you think, man, something is going to go down in this level. As you go through the first tunnel out into the level, you look up and see a huge freaking boulder. Well, that can't be good. As you would expect, the second you wander too far off from the tunnel, the boulder begins to chase you. At this point in the game, this is an entirely new challenge of platforming, one that doesn't give you time to think. The music starts to pick up, with drums and other tribal-like beats. The music gets more and more intense as the level goes on. Jumping, weaving, and running for your life from this huge-ass rock. The music emulates and perfectly represents the pure urgency and anxiety of the situation. I honestly believe it's one of the best tracks on the original Crash Bandicoot. But the true magnum opus of this track is in the midsection. And again, you just feel the urgency with this song. That boulder is coming for you. You gotta move! It's so perfect. Now, listen again to the midsection of that song. And now, the remastered version. They just completely got rid of that awesome drum beat. The very thing that made the song mesh so well with the level. My overall point here is, I hope that if we ever truly do get a remaster of Tomba 2, and if they were to remaster Tomba 2's music, that the same mistakes wouldn't be made. Not to say all tracks of remastered games are bad, but sometimes they just don't recapture the magic of the previous tracks. One thing that the Spyro Reignited trilogy did was leave an option to just play the original music instead of the remastered music. Crash didn't have this option, unfortunately. So in the Tomba 2 remaster, they should definitely give you that option, just in case you don't like the remastered music. I feel though that that should be standard with any remastered game going forward. So, overall, the story is pretty good. Definitely passable by old PS1 platformer standards. The only thing I wonder is, why did the pigs kidnap Tabby in the first place? Well, a miner in the coal mining town explains that it was because she refused to let go of a necklace she got from Tomba when the evil pigs were trying to take it away from her. And why did they want this necklace so bad, you wonder? Well, because it was made of gold. Yeah, it's about the only explanation I could find. And apparently gold is the source of the pig's power? It's explained elsewhere outside the game in a manual or something, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it's the necklace that allowed them to curse the lands. In the remastered version, they could definitely fill in these plot holes and make the story a little more whole. As for why the pigs cursed the land and took over, well, I mean,
It's free real estate.
plus they gotta have that beach house in the Fisherman Village, guys, come on! Tomba 2's an engaging, kooky, imaginative, and extremely fun story, and I think it's more than worthy of a remaster. It has its issues, but it doesn't take away much from the overall game. Now let's talk about gameplay. So the gameplay in Tomba 2 is just as fun and wacky as the story. Your main way of dispatching an enemy is by jumping on them and yeeting that boy off screen. Sometimes into other enemies too, which gets you bonus points. And who doesn't like bonus points, you know what I'm saying? It's somewhat of a hack and slash style game combat-wise. Not only can you jump on and throw enemies, but you can also obtain a variety of weapons over the course of the game. The boomerang, the flail, and the hammer, just to name a few. Actually, that names just about all of them. Most of the other weapons you get in the game are just upgraded versions of the previous mentions, which then makes them obsolete. Now, most people complain about this, but it doesn't really bother me. The boomerangs do have the ability to grab items though, so they always stay relevant because of that. In the remaster, they could make it to where there is still some use for the other older weapons, or maybe just delete them once you obtain the upgrades. That way you don't have to pointlessly cycle through them when you're trying to get to the holy grapple jack. Did I mention the grapple? Once you get it, it makes everything way too easy. Especially combined with the squirrel clothes. Okay. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. What's the squirrel clothes, you might be wondering?
It's cold when you don't have flying squirrel clothes.
Well, not only does Tomba get weapons to use throughout his journey, but he also gets different clothes and equipment, which, much like the weapons, end up getting replaced by better stuff and becoming obsolete. I'm starting to see a pattern here, Tombi. Nevertheless, the clothes are pretty awesome. There's also a whopping 2 whole pants that Tomba can wear as well. Each of them pretty much just increases his running and jumping abilities, and well, that's about it. But the clothes is where the real magic happens. Quite literally with some of them. The first clothes you obtain are the bird clothes, which just let you glide for a few seconds before falling. But the squirrel clothes, now they're pretty awesome. Not only do they do that, but they also allow you to freaking fly for a short time. So long as you keep mashing X to flap your little Tomba squirrel wings. The squirrel clothes, much like a few others, are also needed to progress to the colder regions in the game. But as you can tell, the squirrel clothes make the bird clothes pretty much useless once you get them. However, there was one instance where I found the bird clothes to be a little bit better than the squirrel clothes. When fighting the evil pigs, it is required for you to jump on their backs and throw them into a pig bag. I found that having too much hang time can make it difficult to sometimes jump quickly on the pig's back. And you get a lot of hang time with the squirrel clothes. With the bird clothes though, that hang time is severely reduced, meaning you can jump on the pigs' backs much more quickly, and if you're good, accurately. That was pretty much the only advantage I could really find, but even that's kind of a stretch. Speaking of the evil pigs, once you defeat them, you're rewarded with the next pair of clothes that Tomba gets, the magic pig robes. They allow you to use all sorts of magic, and it's pretty frickin' broken. Most, if not all of it, just one-shots the enemies in one way or another. The catch is, it uses mana. You know, that weird bar that's been just at the bottom left of your screen the whole game and you had no idea what it was used for? Yeah, that stuff. You can restore mana with potions or by just beating some pig ass. Another interesting mechanic is that there are items and accessories that also help you on your quest. Accessories like the mermaid scale that prevent you from dying in the water, or items like the magic wings that teleport you to previous locations. There's also tons of collectibles in the form of chests, gems, and other random items needed to progress in the story or to unlock even more powerful new items. The chests are really interesting though. There's 4 different chests in the game, all sorted by color: red, green, blue, and white. And each chest needs the corresponding key in order to be opened. Now there's a chest of each color in just about every level, but you won't be able to open all of them until you find a way to get the keys later on. Not only does this give you incentive to visit previous levels, but it also gives you even more side quests to complete, even though 2 of the keys are obtained through the main story, but that's besides the point. Bottom line though, there are plenty of collectibles and things to do in Tomba 2. All of this stuff is part of the RPG-like elements of the game, and of course, should all persist in the remaster. I would even say they could add more items, equipment, and collectibles if it would help balance the game or keep it more interesting. Now when it comes to the platforming itself, and I hate to admit this, there are some issues.
You suck!
One being the camera. Sometimes it can be just a bit on the clunky side. That goes for Tomba's movement as well. The sensitivity of his moves seem to be just a little too high. The slightest tap on the D-pad will send Tomba's ass flying. But he is kind of a wild boy, so maybe these wacky controls were part of the formula. Nevertheless, they are kinda hard to get used to, but not really game-breaking in any way. Another issue is his transitions from the 2.5D planes. They're not all that smooth. What I mean is, whenever you jump from one plane to the next, your button configurations will change immediately. This means that if you continue to hold the same direction down on the D-pad as you transition, you'll either keep jumping between the 2 planes, or you'll just completely stand still. Again, this isn't too big a deal, but it's different from most games and takes some getting used to. In the remaster, they could easily fix these issues and make the game controls feel a lot smoother. On top of this, there's the boss fights. I've talked about them a bit earlier, but I want to go into a little more detail. Some of them can be fun, but most can be a bit on the rinse and repeaty side.
I see what you did there.
The way you defeat the pigs is by jumping on them and throwing them, with good timing, into their respective pig bags, which honestly, I think look more like pig coin purses. Is it just me? Anyways, the issue is that the hitboxes on the bosses don't seem very accurate. On top of it, I feel like the bosses could have been a whole lot more dynamic or challenging. And again, I know I said it a million times, but it's something they could easily improve on in the remaster. I mean, this is what we're here to talk about, people, come on. Maybe they could add more obstacles or more options to get the pigs inside the bags. Maybe even let the weapons come into play more. Whenever you hit the bosses with the weapons, they just kinda reset. Which is fine if you're trying to stop them from doing an attack, but in the remaster, if you hit them in just the right way, maybe it could stun them for a few seconds for an easy jump or something like that. Just some ideas. Now, level designs. Most are great, some are average, but I personally love the open world structure of the Tomba 2 levels. You always have a lot of freedom of movement and plenty of exploration. This makes the game not super linear, which is awesome for a platformer. The aforementioned 2.5D planes that I complained about not too long ago add an extra layer of depth to the levels and makes them much more dynamic than they would be without them. The biggest and really the only issue I can think of with the level designs is that they're not big enough. That doesn't go for every level, but some I think could benefit from just maybe a bit more of a scale up. Also, some items and chests could definitely be positioned a little better. Maybe more realistically too, instead of just floating in the air randomly above Tomba's head. I mean, what holds it up there? Pig magic? I just don't know anymore. Camera positionings in certain parts of some levels could also be a bit better. But with all that aside, I think the level designs in Tomba 2 are pretty great. And besides a bit of upscaling maybe, I wouldn't change a thing about it. Lastly, I want to talk about the mini-games. From catching falling clowns to helping little mice collect food, Tomba 2 has a lot in the way of mini-games. Most are optional, but there are a few that are required to progress in the story. But the one mini-game I want to talk about is probably the most infamous of all, the trolley mini-game.
Trouble with the trolley, eh?
No, not that trolley mini-game. This trolley mini-game. Yes, many a controller was thrown over this bad boy. So how do you play? Well, Tomba rolls down the trolley track at OSHA panic-inducing speeds and attempts to get the best possible time. You're also timed in 2 ways, as you're carrying a bucket of cement with you that hardens over time. If the cement fully hardens before you reach the end of the track, oh, for God's sake! There's also collectibles on the track called Seeds of Strength, which are used to naturally find the locations of the evil pig doors later in the game.
Oh, he's pissing on me! Oh, fuck, Jesus Christ!
But we all just looked that shit up on game FAQs, so, you know, it's not like we really needed them or anything, but it is a fun accomplishment to get all the Seeds of Strength. While on the track, Tomba can lean left or right to make it around tight turns. In some cases, if you're going too fast, you'll fail no matter how hard you lean.
You failed.
I know I failed, goddammit! This means you have to preemptively lean ahead of time to ensure you don't derail. There is also a brake system that comes into play, but braking too much will guarantee your failure of that top time. And all this means that you need to pretty much memorize the course in order to complete it 100%. Especially for the upgraded turbo trolley, which has ridiculous speeds. I mean, trolleys were never meant to go this fast, guys. It's really not safe. At the end of it all, you get the Golden Sun, which is used in an endgame side quest to get literally the best item in the game. I won't say what it is, but let's just say Game Shark's got nothing on this item. Frustrations aside, it's a pretty decent minigame, and it's really satisfying when you beat your time and get around those tight turns successfully. All the minigames in Tomba 2 are pretty enjoyable likewise, and I think they should stay in the remaster with little to no changes. Maybe some extra mechanics thrown in to make them more interesting, but other than that, just leave them. Overall, Tomba 2 is a pretty fantastic PS1 game. It's bright, charming, and imaginative, and it does a great job at blending platforming with RPG elements. The 2.5D platforming adds a unique style to the game and brings the best of both 3D and 2D style gameplay. On top of it all, Tomba 2 has a pretty decent cult following of fans. It's not hard to find dedicated Tomba 2 communities out there, and it's clear that there's a demand for a remaster, or at least just Tomba 3. But like we've seen more recently with Crash 4, in order to see Tomba 3, more than likely we would need to see remasters of the first 2 games. So, should it be remastered? Yes! I believe that Tomba is more than worthy of getting a remaster. But could it be remastered? Probably not. I really hate to say it, but despite this game being more than worthy of a remaster, the likelihood of it actually happening anytime soon, or ever, is very doubtful. With Whoopee Camp no longer operating and no word from Monkey Paw, Sony, or Fujiwara about the franchise, it's just not looking very good, Box Bros.
Someday, somewhere, we'll play again, right, Tomba?
But there is hope, because as I've said, Fujiwara does still own rights to Whoopee Camp and brought the company out of complete dormancy. There's been no word from him, but who knows? Maybe he is indeed getting together a crew to work on something Tomba related. Could it be a remaster? Tomba 3? Only time will tell. Well, that concludes our first episode of Should It Be Remade? I hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to leave a like and a comment of what game you would like to see be remade, and maybe I'll make it the topic of my next video. Until next time, Box Bros, I'll catch you later.